Welcome one and all. I said a little while ago I would be doing a video on the Charmed reboot, and that day has finally come. I'm going to be giving a logical and personal analysis of the reboot and the trailer for it. There is no bias, just straight up honesty, so let's begin. For those who don't know, Charmed is a reboot of the series of the same name that originally ran from 1998 to 2006 and it will air later this year. It will follow three sisters by the names of Macy, Mel and Maggie, who after the death of their mother discover they are the Charmed Ones, the most powerful witches in the world. Where to begin? I'll start with the visual promotions. This is the first official poster for the show and I'm not loving it. It gets that very enchanting childlike vibe where I expect fairies to be flying around, and given the subject of the show and the fact this is 2018, I would have expected something with more oomph, a little more intensity and darker tones. The font is a less impressive version of the font used for the original Charmed. Kind of sad and shocking that a reboot is even copying another show's font. Like, how much originality do you have to be lacking to copy the font? The two together make the poster look rather cheap. However, then we have this one, which is much better but still not great. I don't think the design for the symbol and the colouring of the women blend well. I will say I love that triquetra design. I wish the original had at some point done the shattered glass effect. I think it's really clever, and I could picture that done on the season 8 DVD covers because those covers were a bright grey, so I think it would have looked great on there and would echo the final season quite perfectly. Now onto the trailer itself. The trailer painfully sucks. I tried to find something to praise and I couldn't do it. Firstly, from the trailer, it looks like they are using the original series season 4 plot, which is a very bizarre and risky way to start a show. In this, their mother dies, and while processing her death, they find out they have powers, and on top of that, they find out they have a long-lost older sister. That is way too much to establish during a first season. The first season is the most crucial, and this looks like it's doing too much. You have to establish your characters, your tone, your plot, your mythology, and now on top of that, your characters must form bonds with each other and process their powers. That's asking too much. Now, I could be wrong, but the trailer looks like it's a trailer for the first episode and not the series as a whole, and if that's the case, Houston, we have a problem. It looks like in a single episode, mom dies, they get powers, they get a sister, become super witches, save lives, and become as close as can be by the end of it. I hope I'm wrong, because if I'm not, what the hell? During the original Charmed, season 4's entire season was dedicated to Piper and Phoebe not only dealing with the death of their sister Prue, but adjusting to their new roles in the family and developing this bond with Paige. That bond was still in progress by the end of the season, so come season 5, they were completely unified. Point is, they dedicated time to it because bonds don't form instantly. Even the first episode was split into 2 parts to allow for it to be done right because it's a big deal, so the idea that this new version is doing it in 1 episode is alarming. The first season of the original Charm was able to focus on the sisters helping each other figure out their new destiny as witches because they already grew up together, but at the same time there was issues between the characters, so we got to see them work that out and mend those bridges. It brought them closer, but that's all easier to do when there was already something there. Starting from nothing is harder. I'm also not sure how they will go about establishing why Macy was given up as a baby. Now, since I'm just going off the trailer, for all I know they've got it figured out and it'll work great, but from an initial look, I'm skeptical. In the original, they cleverly made Paige half Whitelighter because Whitelighters and witches are forbidden to be together, so her mother gave her up to protect her. She feared Paige might be punished for being created from something forbidden, and she feared her other daughters would be collateral damage too, so giving her up made sense. In this, I don't buy the traditional reason a mother would give up a child, such as being too young, because this is a woman who is a strong witch who comes from a long line of witches, so I feel she'd have been more than able to raise the next generation. Macy is not half Whitelighter, so there's that, and then when Macy shows up at the house showing a picture of her with her mother, the baby in the picture looks a few months old, so that's even more strange. Why would you wait months to give up your child but then later have 2 others? It's odd. Also, their mother Marisol dies just after casting a spell to return their powers, so surely she should have known it would affect the child she gave up. Why would you give back powers to someone who doesn't know you and is going to be extremely fucking confused? That just makes no sense. The trailer introduces us to the Charmed One's white lighter Harry, who is literally Giles on crack. He kidnaps them and takes them back to their own house to explain to them what they are, which is extreme. He really seems modeled after Giles, and he gives off this comedic quality which clashes with the rest of the tone of the trailer, and he has powers such as telekinesis. Now, in the original, white lighters were able to kind of mimic fake versions of demonic powers solely for training purposes, so giving a white lighter offensive powers in this version seems counterproductive. Like, if these beings already have powers, why need witches? The trailer then introduces us to the Book of Shadows. I think it's cool they kept the concept of the Book of Shadows, but I think they're only doing it because the original did, and not for the same reasons the original did it. In real Wicca, white witches will possess a Book of Shadows. This is what it's called, and it doesn't just contain spells and rituals. It is really like a journal, and it is spiritual, so that's where the original concept came from, but they made it a family heirloom, which I think is a great touch. In the reboot, it is still a family heirloom, but the make of it looks a bit garish. It looks brand new and definitely looks like something you could go down to your local Wiccan store and buy pre-made. I know because I've seen them. If this is an ancient family heirloom, it doesn't have that beautiful antique look. It doesn't even look like an item that is a treasured possession. It looks like a prop, and that's upsetting. What I always loved about the Book of Shadows was what an amazing piece of art it was and how it really was its own character within the show. And it also always looked weathered, so I don't feel this reboot is doing it or where it comes from in the terms of Wiccan culture justice. Now for the effects. In the defense of the show, this is just a trailer. As we've seen with films, a lot of the time the trailer is not a representation of the final product. Effects will still need to be done, scenes may be taken out, so what you see in a trailer may not be what you see in the final product. Having said that, I really hope for its sake that's the case, because the effects look bad. This is 2018, how can you have effects of such low quality? The trailer introduces us to our first demon. I'm not sure if all demons will look like this or just this particular one, but it is sad and cheap looking, and in fact I have seen this particular demon design done before in the past. I just can't for the life of me remember where I've seen it. The black eyes and the veins and the rotten teeth are a cliche at this point, and I would have expected better. As far as I can remember, black eyes were only used in the original to signify a supreme entity, and they were always temporary: the source, the hollow, and the nexus. I hope the final product is better, because so far I'm not happy. The approach to this reboot is honestly where most of my frustration lies. Firstly, if you are a Charmed fan and you are insulting or threatening the cast of the reboot, then please immediately stop calling yourself a Charmed fan, because you make us all look bad. No one deserves that kind of treatment. It is entirely unnecessary and achieves nothing. These women are just actors trying to do a job, no need to be dicks to them. My issues are the fact this is called the feminist reboot of the original series and literally goes on the record saying it is about tearing down the patriarchy. The original Charmed was already a feminist show, so trying to promote yourself as this like you're doing something original when you're just doing something off the back of someone else's work is insulting. The reboot prides itself on having a more diverse cast because the original centered around, quote, 4 straight white women. Are we really going to make that a negative? You're upset the original had straight white women? Is that where we're at? I have to gather my thoughts because I have so much to say, but I will start by saying the level of disrespect the reboot has shown not only of the original, but the original cast is quite appalling. One of the new actresses went on record saying that it is nothing like the original, but then in the same breath said she'd never even seen the original, so commenting on something you don't know seems unwise. Also, the cast and crew of the reboot have mentioned how the original cast are too old to do the job. Wow. Holly Marie Combs bit back at that, and I'm glad she did. Talk about biting the hand that feeds you. Given the struggles women have in Hollywood, one of them being ageism, the notion that female actors are of no value after a certain age, you just proved that struggle true. How offensive to say these women are too old to appeal to a young generation. That show is still being watched by children born this year. What an ignorant comment. And to those saying this is a race issue, it's not. Holly never brought up race, internet trolls did. No one has an issue with the race of the reboot cast. I have an issue with them not having respect for the source material. You can hate on the fact the original was white straight women, but those white straight women paved the way for these new women to be able to do this regardless of gender and sexual orientation. Charmed was a huge deal when it started because it had an all-female leading cast. Even Buffy didn't have that. Charmed ended up being the longest running TV show to feature an all-female leading cast until Desperate Housewives made about 2 episodes. Don't ever insult the past. The achievements made in the past allow us to achieve things easier now and fight for achievements in the future. Yes, they were straight white women, but having that many women doing much of anything in 1998 was a huge feat, and because they did, more came of it. Real feminism doesn't tear down women, and it certainly doesn't insult the people who did things so our generation could have it a little better. Not to mention, that show featured characters from not just different races, but different cultural backgrounds. It showcased things from different parts of the world, and it also had some gay characters. They may not have been front and center, but they were at least there, and now 20 years later, they can be front and center because of it. Here's the show's biggest problem to me. It will never truly accomplish what it hopes to because at the end of the day, it isn't original or unique. You can change the race, you can change the sexuality, but you are still just redoing something that's already been done. And in a time when things are crazy competitive, I don't see how you can survive. How can you truly showcase what this reboot is trying to represent when it is constantly going to be compared to something else? The elements in this show, if done a different way, could have been revolutionary. What if our 3 Hispanic witches were set in South America, not in the US for a change? What if those witches weren't the American version of a witch? What if it was a show that was all about South American culture and their supernatural and spiritual beliefs and what witchcraft is like in that culture or any other culture for that matter? Because witchcraft can be found all over the world in many cultures. You could have had a show that showcased diversity in a completely new and exciting way. It could never be compared to anything else. It would have its own platform to stand on. It could really make a difference, but it won't. Instead, we're just copying an idea, changing it around, and you still end up with something we have seen done 100 times that is laced in American culture and therefore doesn't offer anything new. American Horror Story Coven gave voodoo and that type of witchcraft a brief moment in the light, but imagine if that was its own show. You could be getting something rich with diversity and culture. The thought of something like that truly excites me. This doesn't excite me. It just makes me sad. It thinks it's revolutionary, but the revolution started a while ago. All you're doing is riding someone else's coattails and taking the credit. Well, that's enough of my thoughts and opinions on the Charmed reboot. Comment down below, share your thoughts on it, but please remember, we don't need to be hateful assholes to each other. It's just a disgusting side of humanity. We can have differing opinions and still talk and be part of the same conversation and have respect for each other, so let's try practicing that. Until next time, bye.